Thomas kept a subtle eye on the security camera, whilst trying to converse normally with Jafqua. Finally, he leaned forward and lowered his voice, making sure to keep his expression neutral. Say, Jafqua, what do you think the odds are of a security camera keeping track of only us? He whispered, turning his face slightly so that the camera couldn't see his serious expression. Jafqua tensed from his words, and as she moved ahead, Thomas coughed loudly. Don't, he muttered. Well, if we were the only people, pretty high, Jafqua trailed off, turning around to look at the crowded tea house. But we aren't. This place is packed. She looked back towards him. Tom, just to make sure, you're saying that because we're being monitored, right? She said quietly. Thomas nodded. Yes, there's a camera pointed straight towards us, just like normal, he whispered, taking a sip of his Garen Delight. Sitting up, he looked subtly at the other security cameras. Sure enough, they were scanning the room in large, sweeping arcs, instead of looking directly at customers. There was an uneasy silence as Jafqua and Thomas began hurrying to finish their drinks, no longer wanting to savour them. The once cosy-feeling cafe now felt tense and suffocating. Act casual, Thomas said, forcing his face to be neutral. Jafqua nodded. How much do you want to bet that this is the headmaster's doing? She whispered a few moments later. At that, Thomas frowned. A lot, he muttered. That prick. Would he even dare to spy on us outside of school? He hissed. Jafqua nodded, as Thomas continued. Especially during tea time, he said indignantly. At that, Jafqua snorted, before shaking her head and muttering something about Brits and tea. Chugging the last of his drink, Thomas stood up before turning back to his girlfriend, hand outstretched. Well, I think it's time we should be going, he said. Jafqua gave a toothy smile before grabbing his hand, quickly being pulled to her feet by the considerably shorter being. Smiling back, Thomas walked over to the counter, quickly paying for their drinks. We hope you enjoyed your time here, the cashier said in a monotone voice, most likely having repeated that exact line hundreds if not thousands of times, boredom hidden behind the bright green magistrate's equivalent of a customer service smile. Thomas smirked back, speaking in English. You stalking gobshite, he said, before pretending to berate himself. Sorry, I forgot what language I was speaking. Thank you. Seemingly falling for his bullshit, the magistrate chuckled nervously before turning to the next customers in line. As he and Jafqua exited the store, Thomas could still see the camera in the corner out of his eye, turning towards them. Well, that went well, Thomas said sarcastically, letting out a sigh of relief as he walked down the street with Jafqua. Meanwhile, beside him, Jafqua was intently typing into a holopad as they made their way back to the dorm apartments. Thomas, I just translated what you said. Well, I tried to at least. What's a gobshite? She asked hesitantly. Do I want to know? She added a moment later. Smiling devilishly, Thomas simply replied, an idiot with extra steps. Jafqua just stared at him for a moment, seemingly contemplating on what to say. Okay, she said. Taking a look behind them, Thomas made sure he and Jafqua were more or less alone before speaking. Do you really think that the camera was the headmaster's doing? He asked. Jafqua huffed. We don't know for sure, of course, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me if it was him, she said, her blue eyes narrowing. Thomas nodded, thinking. Should we tell this to the others? I mean, yeah, we don't have proof, but we probably should, right? He said in contemplation. Yes, I think we should, Jafqua answered. Suddenly, a look of anger came across her face, and she clenched her scalp-clawed fists, trembling, seething breaths escaping her mouth. Whoa, what's wrong? Thomas soothed, a brow raised. It's just... Jafqua inhaled and let out a shaky breath. I can't believe it. Our headmaster. All this. It's just so frustrating. We can't do anything, she spat. First he watches us around the school, and now possibly in public? Before she could start up again, Jafqua felt two small arms wrap around her torso, warm skin heating her up and making her feel fuzzy inside. I know, Thomas stated quietly. I know. Well, that's just adorable. A familiar voice broke the silence. Turning quickly, Thomas's face red, the two of them saw their friends. Rylan was the one who had spoken, grinning as always. Lilith had a neutral smile, and David was... well, David. How much did you hear? Thomas demanded. Oh, were you two discussing something personal? Rylan hissed. No, we were talking about how... Moving closer to the three, Thomas lowered his voice. While me and Jafqua were at the cafe, a camera was monitoring us. Just us, and no one else in the room. We were discussing whether or not it could have been the headmaster's doing, he whispered. And that included hugging? Rylan joked, before getting jabbed in the chest by Lilith. Ow, stop that. It's just a joke. You're trying to break my ribs or something? He protested. No joking around. This is a serious matter. If they're correct, that means that the headmaster is pulling some serious crap. While he might be able to get away with monitoring students on school grounds, he has no authority to do the same in public spaces, Lilith said curtly. Everyone has a right to their private affairs, Lilith concluded, winking to a profusely embarrassed Javqua. Tom, what was that eye thing she just did? Javqua whispered loudly to Thomas, who was blushing even harder. Guys? Luckily for Javqua and Thomas, Rylan butted in. What? Lilith questioned, a brow raised. There's a camera looking right at us, he said quietly. It's to our right, just don't look at it. Sure enough, there was, and one by one, the others managed to get a glimpse of it. Well, that's pretty unnerving. Let's get the hell out of here, Liz suggested bluntly, and she was met with murmurs of agreement. The group of 5 hurriedly walked back to the student apartments, doing their best to ignore the cameras in the streets, slowly turning one by one to look at them. You know, if the headmaster is this bad at being secretive, we might have a decent chance against him, Lilith said. I doubt it, Rylan murmured, with a sullen expression. I did some research on the school. Wow, you studied for once? Lilith joked, glancing towards the boy. I did some research on the school, Rylan repeated louder, scowling, and I found out that the headmaster, Mr. Pevenjara, is, well, let's just say he's got connections, he said ominously. What's that supposed to mean? Thomas interjected. Like, with the space cartel? He asked, confused. No, with this influential group called the PHA, Rylan replied. Short for Pro-Herbivore Association. They're, well, anti-carnivore, and I also assume they're anti-omnivore, he explained. And before you ask how the headmaster is getting away with this, I only found out because I did, little hacking, Rylan whispered, looking around to make sure nobody was within earshot. Wait, are you serious? The modulated voice of David demanded, his head tilted to the side incredulously. So you're not as smooth-brained as I thought. Hey, okay, listen. I know I don't really act like it, but I'm pretty smart, Rylan protested. Everyone just stared blankly at him, unconvinced. Come on, I was chosen to go here for a reason, the boy continued. Don't worry, man, we're all joking here, don't sweat about it, Thomas said diplomatically, trying to break the slight tension. You sure? Javqua blurted, and Thomas snorted at her abrupt words, struggling to hold back his chuckles. The rest of the group had similar reactions, and then they all began laughing. You guys suck mega dicks, Rylan muttered, with a slight smile on his face. So, what connections to the PHA does the headmaster have exactly? Thomas asked, once everyone had stopped chuckling. Well, even though the PHA is a hated organisation, they still have a lot of influence from their numbers and resources. I'm also pretty sure that they have a lot of powerful people backing them up who secretly support them, Rylan said grimly. So then, why didn't we just reveal the headmaster's connection with them? Lilith spoke. Yeah, why don't we? Javqua said hopefully, looking at Rylan. Well, you see, guys, the thing is, I didn't hack the PHA, I hacked the headmaster's account, Rylan said with a grin. And before you ask, I have no shame about it. Thomas threw his hands up in the air with exasperation. This has got to be a joke. We have so much evidence, but we're unable to use it because we got it through illegal means. It's almost as if life is taunting us, he said. Does anybody else have anything to confess? Lilith asked sarcastically. Any more hackers? Ninjas, maybe? Secret superpowers? David raised his hand. Actually, I do, Thomas spoke up. I've had preliminary training and some augments for the Wreck Marines, he said casually. Why? Rylan asked, confused. Oh, it's just family tradition, Thomas replied lazily. What the hell? Rylan mumbled, shaking his head. I have self-defense bionics, Lilith said suddenly. Of course you do, Rylan sighed. Man, I feel like a nerd now. He looked to his side to see Lilith putting a hand on his shoulder with a sympathetic expression. You are, she said curtly, a half smirk gracing her lips. I thought New Canadians were nice and peaceful, Thomas remarked, a brow raised. Well, we are, most of the time, Lilith answered dryly. Everyone then expectantly looked over to David, freezing when they did so. The small German had what appeared to be a combat shovel, scraping at his edge with his fingernail. "What?" he said, seemingly having ignored the conversation up to that point. "You learn something new every day," Jaffa muttered, her eyes wide in no small amount of shock at what she had learnt about her new friends.